Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Anurag Modi, and today I will be talking about Adivasi forest interface and changing forest policy. In this lecture, the central idea of this module is to show how the forest dwellers' access to forest resources has reduced with every major policy initiative. First, we will look at the example of Thakur Bhabu Singh. Thakur Bhabu Singh was Adivasi chieftain at Bori Forest near Pachmadi in Hoshangabad district of Madhya Pradesh. In 1859, he rebelled against British, and as a punishment to his rebel, his entire land area of around 10 to 15,000 acres was confiscated by British government, and he was captured and hanged at Jabalpur jail in 1862, and his entire forest area was converted into the reserve forest. So in short, we can say Bhabu Singh was the first victim of British's policy of managing forest, and then only they started the forest policy. And first time in India, the forest department was set in 1865, and the first legislation of Forest Act was also brought in the same year. Initially, the restriction to forest resources was limited, but with the introduction of Reserve Forest Act of 1878, British brought in the idea of reserve forest. If you look at the example in Mandla district, the land area under the reserve forest was 2.39% in 1876. But after the introduction of Forest Act 1878 with the provision of reserve forest, by 1891, the area of reserve forest was half the land area of Mandla district. We will also see in this module that how the intervention of World Bank has brought in new policy changes like JFM, Payment for Eco Service, and the Green India Mission. All these new policy changes has been brought in last 2 to 3 decades. In this, we will also see how the making of the Forest Right Act 2006 has not changed much for the Adivasi, as the bureaucratic attitude of the Forest Department and the basic premises of the law has not changed much. In this paper, we will also look into the various policy changes brought in last 2 to 3 decades with the intervention of World Bank, like policy of Joint Forest Management JFM, then PES, Payment for Eco Service system, and Green India Mission. In this paper, we will also see how the making of Forest Right Act 2006 had not much changed for the Adivasi. First, we will talk of colonial appropriation. We must remember that Britishers were one of the European forces who, pressed by the constant war in their continent and the industrialization, needed other countries to supply goods, supply raw material. The main resources from forest was for the shipbuilding, as Britain was in constant war with other European countries, So the requirement of wood for the shipbuilding, and with 1857 rebel, British required a faster communication and transportation of their military within India. So after 1857 rebel, the laying of railway networks in India came in a big way. And these two things led to the making of this Forest Act of 1865, and then further the Act of 1878. The Act of 1878, if we look at it, see, with the Britishers, they used to do everything with the foundation of law. But the law was designed in such a way that nobody would get their rights. Like the collector of Nasik, E.N.B. Erskine, wrote, it would be fancy a bhil or a koli being told to present the officer about to inquire with a written notice stating the nature of his rights within the forest. I would venture to suggest that no bhil or koli would ever give in his written notice. Could we then say that all his rights have been lapsed? Adivasi lost on two accounts. One, because of the making of reserve forest in the hilly areas, and then also on the revenue land, because Malgujars were given the rights over land, but not the Adivasi, because the British applied the Bengal Tenancy Act. Under the Bengal Tenancy Act, the continuous occupation of 12 years was must, whereas Adivasi were engaged in shifting cultivation. They won't cultivate one piece of land for more than 1 or 2 years. So Adivasi lost on both the hilly areas also and in the plains also. More and more land was cleared for cultivation, as it was seen as a source of revenue by the Britishers. In the post-independence period, we continued with the same colonial legacy. We didn't change. We must remember that the forest and the forest department in this country is still governed by the Indian Forest Act 1927. Neither the legal framework has changed, nor the attitude of the forest bureaucracy has changed. They still behave like a colonial master. Because see, our concern, our government's concern and relation with the forest has not changed. In the post-colonial period also, the forest policy was so made that how to support the industrialization. We will also see now the policy intervention. Most of the policy intervention after the era of globalization, after say 1991 in India, was influenced by World Bank. To begin with, if we see the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, in that Earth Summit, it was so decided that other than the sovereign right of the country over the forest, from now on, the forest will be global public good. And with this, they brought in two things. One is the concept of joint forest management. The joint forest management means the community and the forest department will jointly manage the forest. And but if you look at the reality, it was neither joint and not the forest management. And all these JFM projects were funded by World Bank or its other multilateral funding allies. Then in 2003, the World Bank brought in Global Forest Strategy. That was brought in May 2003. This the major theme of this was commodification of forests, marketing of the eco-service, and certification of logging. They said that service system will be going to one of the biggest business in the coming years. They estimated around $4.7 trillion of business of eco-service, which will be around one-fourth of the world GDP. What is payment for eco-service system? Payment for eco-service system means you don't use the ecosystem, like say we tell Adivasi not to fire their chula or not to graze their cattle in the forest, and in lieu of that they will be paid certain amount. This is how they plan to reduce carbon emission. So in short, we can say they will continue to the European and other Western countries will continue to make their carbon emission, but restrict the local community in countries like India. The other major factor was in this policy was they said that until and unless the rights of people are settled, means the land is clear of title, the big corporates won't enter the forest of India. So then started the making of and drafting of Forest Right Act in 2005. The another major change was that India agreeing in WTO on the principle of eco-service, and it has also agreed to remove the restriction of access to scheduled areas under 5th and 6th schedule of Indian Constitution. Under the payment for eco-service system, the clean development mechanism will be the big agenda. The clean development mechanism is that other countries emit carbon and we sink it, and we are paid for that sinking. So in short, we can say you pollute and we take the burn. Yes. Green India Mission, under the payment for eco-service system, which is in short called PES, the MOE has brought a policy paper in 2011. Basically, the Green India Mission is to cover the land area which is actually not under the forest. It is a degraded land, it is the marshy land, degraded forest. So basically, the quantitative improvement in forest system, ecosystem, afforestation. It also includes scrubs, shifting cultivation areas, cold deserts, mangroves, and abundant mining areas, and so on. We must remember that all these areas which the Green India Mission covers is a source of livelihood for communities, and these are the basically community land. Though no one in the community individually owns it, but all these are the community lands. Once the government starts any program like Green India Mission on this land, it will reduce the access of these community to these resources. Forest Right Act 2000C. See, nowadays we see a lot of discussion about the Forest Right Act 2006. It has been talked about as a historical and revolutionary law which has been brought in to undo the historical injustice to forest dwellers community, especially Adivasi. But if we go by the ground realities, it has failed. It has failed to implement it later in spirit. Why? Because the basic law which governs Adivasi in this country has not changed. So now we have seen the various policy and from the British time to the present day, and now we will discuss how to go about this. First of all, all the new policy which has been brought in the name of bringing in community into the yes, all the new policy which has been brought in the name of involving community or giving access to the community or rights to the community has been tailor-made and preconceived by the agency which has been funding these projects, and basically these are to accommodate certain agenda governed by this multilateral financial agency. In this new policy, the joint forest management is going to be the implementing arms. But if we go by the records, if we go by the various experiences at the field level, I can say from my personal experience as an activist working in the tribal area for the last 25 years, that JFM has broken the fabrics of Adivasi community. In a JFM, see, earlier it was a fight between the forest department and Adivasi for rights over the forest. But now in the JFM, the community is pitched against the community, because there are certain people in the village who are lured in the JFM by the department, and there are other people who are out of the JFM. Though on paper, everybody is a member of JFM committee, but in the funds come to JFM and the forest department employ people, say 10, 20 in the name of watcher or forest temporary forest guard in JFM, and they become their arms and tools to harass Adivasi. Earlier it was forest department guard are harassing the Adivasi or beating the Adivasi or booking Adivasi, but now it is Adivasi versus Adivasi. So it is bringing in inter-village and intra-village conflict in a big way. It is also bringing in conflict between the two Adivasi community, like in Mandla between Gond and Begas. The basic criteria, the basic pivotal point of all these policy changes which has been brought in with the influence of World Bank is that bona fide needs of the community must be met through the alternative means. And we have seen that the welfare schemes which are run by the government cannot substitute the forest resources. All the government scheme, whether it's a PDS, whether it's a Anganwadi, Antyodaya Yojana, you name any scheme of the which is run by the government, they all are infected by the corruption, mismanagement. So we can't put entire community, we can't make entire community dependent on the welfare schemes run by the government, which is rooted deep in the corruption. You bring in Aadhaar or you bring in any mechanism, that is not going to eradicate this corruption. And with the community like Adivasi, if we bring in new technology like this, it doesn't work. We have seen that in many examples. Now the outcome of Aadhaar scheme is also coming out from Jharkhand and other places where the Adivasi are not getting PDS supply. We see malnutrition deaths in Adivasi. We see anemia. We have, even in a place like Palghar and all, which are very close to Mumbai, we have seen children dying in numbers of malnutrition. Not only that, we have even seen children dying in ashram shala run by the government. So we can't put entire community dependent on a government scheme. I will give you one example. In Madhya Pradesh, in Chhindwara district, one Adivasi family of Jugar Lal, on 19 November 2010, 6 members of Jugar Lal's family died. Why? Because in the morning they ate a stale chapati made of mango kernel. The chapati of mango kernel is made by grinding the mango kernel and then wrapping it in a cloth and putting it under some water stream to reduce its poisonous effect, and then made into a chapati. If somewhere that process is not completed properly, or the chapati is still, sometimes it becomes poisonous. In Jugarlal's family, then next day they ate, the sixth member of his family had that chapati made of the mango kernel, which was made a day earlier, and all 6 of them died. So, and if we see the ration card entry and the job card entry of Jugarlal, it's all blank. He has neither got any ration nor any job under the Narega scheme. So, had the Jugarlal had his own resources to feed his family or to earn his livelihood, then he would have not had this fate. So, we must remember that a community like Adivasi, their livelihood is mainly dependent on access to forest. And access to forest for Adivasi is not only livelihood resources, it's also a way of life for them. Their entire life of Adivasi revolves around their relation with forest. Their deity is are in the forest, in the hills, in the water streams. All their rituals revolve around forest. Like in Gond, Adivasi, the marriage is not complete unless they take 7 fera of a salai pole. Then they have a festival called Harijaroti, in which they consume honey, which is in the trunk of a tree. So, there are various rituals. If you go through the year, every Adivasi has a Devkhala in the forest area, where once in a year they go and worship their god. Actually, we need to see that the Britishers brought in the proprietorship right over the forest. That needs to be broken. And the bureaucratic attitude which has seeped in with the which we have the legacy which we continued of bureaucracy in the forest department, that also we need to change. In revenue land area, the government abolished the Jamidari system. The tenants, if not all, many tenants received the land title. The government brought in the policy of land to the tiller. But in a forest area, until 2006, no such law was brought in. And even in 2006 law, they say that the one who was occupying land on 13th December 2005. But about those who were evicted considering an encroacher from the forest land. And even if we take that December 2005 as a sacrosanct date, the implementation part of the Forest Right Act is very much to be debated, because the Forest Department is still governed by the Indian Forest Act 1927. Not only that, it is legally governed by that act, but the entire attitude of the Forest Department is also is following that. So, the basic conflict between the Adivasi community and forest bureaucracy has not changed. I can say from my personal experience that Adivasi houses are still burned down, their village is razed, they are jailed, they are persecuted, women are tortured, they are sexually harassed. It still continues, and this doesn't continue as an exception, but it's a general phenomena in the forest area. even if we see the Naxal infected area in Bastar or other part, the most of the support to the Naxals come from the atrocities, the victim of atrocity by the forest department or other government forces. We still need to come to the terms with the making of Forest Right Act. See, the basic fundamental point in the Forest Right Act 2006 is that the community has the right which need to be recognized. The FRA doesn't talk of giving rights. It says they have the right, historical right, it only need to be recognized. Second thing, it says that this law has been brought in to undo the historical injustice. So unless we discuss that what that historical injustice was, like I gave the example of Bhabhu Singh. He rebelled in 1859. He was traced and captured in 1862 and hanged at Jabalpur jail. And his entire land was converted into reserve forest area. In the Reserve Forest Act and provision, Adivasi cannot even enter the reserve forest. Even for entering the reserve forest, they can be prosecuted for trespass. They can't collect even the fallen leaves from the reserve forest. And that provision was brought in 1878. And it continued till the Indian Forest Act of 1927, and it still continues. So how can we govern and say that we are working for the benefit of or for the welfare of the community when we govern them by the 200 years old law? So the basic premises of that has not changed. And as we have seen in the case of the example of Mandla, and if we go through the records of the British government, we would realize that in all the places, the most of the forest area has been confiscated, illegally taken away from the Adivasi. So if you want to do the undo the historical injustice, then we need to look into what that historical injustice, go into the records, see the records, verify the records, and then give territorial rights to the Adivasi. The individual rights to the Adivasi will not work. We need to give them, and many countries in the world have done this. So basically the main issue is not where to begin, but the main issue is not where to end, but where to begin. And this historical conflict will not end. See, the Adivasi is the only community which has been in perennial constant war with the Indian state. Much before the 1857 rebel, Adivasi, right from the last phase of 18th century, they started rebelling against the British. And even today, just after the independence, we have seen many Adivasi movement in Northeast. Then we have seen Naxalbari. Then we have seen Telangana movement. And then now we see the Naxal Andolan Bastar. Not only that, there are hundreds of non-violent movement going on in this country, which are led and by Adivasi. So the state's conflict with the Adivasi is not ending. In short, I can say Adivasi is the only community, as a community. And the Indian government also conclude that the Naxal problem is one of the biggest internal security threat. So when we consider a movement by an Adivasi as a biggest internal security threat, then we need to revisit our policy and our laws. The basic concern is that once we give the territorial right to Adivasi or the community, local community, how would they manage it? See, that for that we need to sit with them. They have been living in the forest for time immemorial. They have been living in harmony with the forest. So we should not impose some tailor-made or ready-made policy influenced by the World Bank or other corporate. We need to sit with them, work with them, that how this is going to work, because they have been living in harmony and they are the only guardian of the forest, and they have the interest in saving the forest. So this Adivasi forest interface has to be, the policy change this time has to be initiated in real discussion with Adivasi community, not some a fake discussion, or we can say that a camouflage discussion with Adivasi. Then only this conflict of Adivasi and forest can be ended. So now we end this lecture. I thank you all for listening this.